Maria, you've been at the forefront of responsible AI for years now, from leading the agenda at PwC to now founding Responsible Intelligence. Could you start by sharing a bit about your journey and what's motivated you to dedicate your career to making AI not just smarter, but more responsible?
Thank you so much for having me, Jenny and Leah. I keep on saying that my journey into AI was by um, providence because I felt like I felt into AI and AI kind of sucked me in. I've always had a bit of a relationship with technology. When I was in my um, teens years, I wanted to become a fly jet pilot. Don't ask me why. I was fascinated by planes. But unfortunately, they were not accepting girls at the time. So I was pretty annoyed. I was a feisty teenager. And I said to myself, what's the other domain that is incomprehensible, hard, and challenging? And I'll go for it. And it was computer science. And there was like early 90s in Romania, and we had little access to computers. So a lot of the learning was made on paper, which helped us develop the thinking, understand what we were doing. At the time, was utterly frustrating, and I had to say I struggled for the first 2 years. But that's when the beginning of my relationship with technology. And despite the fact when I had to choose my bachelor degree, and I opted for business and management, it felt like technology was following me everywhere I go. There was a little bit of like, yes, my job involved developing a software and implementing in the stores I was running, or it was about reshuffling a little bit of the stock. And I felt at some point, maybe I should just give in. You know what? Let's officialize our relationship and then we'll go from there. And little did I know it, when I came to the UK, graduated my MBA, I will join a technology consulting company, and I will kind of be immersed in the whole world of technology consulting and understanding the whole ecosystem and context. And then when I joined PwC, I continued to work, but it was more of like a bridge in between business and technology. And when PwC established their Center of Excellence on AI, they invited me to join. And it was interesting because the brief for me to join was, we'll figure it out together. Honestly, that was like the lightest job description I ever got. And at the time, there was very little consideration about controlling autonomous technology that we are developing. It was very narrow. That the application my colleagues at the time were building, especially in the US, were very narrow type of AI. But there was little consideration of how control it. And we started asking those questions. Okay, so like, if we have this technology that's quite unique, how do we control it? What can go wrong? Clearly, we're going to have an explainability problem because we cannot explain how this model operates or make decisions. And boy, when we started looking into the issue of bias and discrimination. And out of those conversations, we actually lay out the foundation of responsible AI. I was very fortunate to be part of a pioneering group, and that's how everything else is history. And I have to say that when I look back and ask myself why responsible AI, why I was so attracted to this side of technology rather than going down on the engineering path, which I so easily could have done it, then I remember that I grew up with, surprise, surprise, Star Trek, The Next Generation. And I was utterly fascinated. I think I've seen episodes on repeat on the big philosophical questions, because every single episode will explore a question at the intersection of humanity, technology, a space, and infinity, if you want. And I was utterly fascinating how technology was playing a role and not playing a role, and how we're exploring, humanity and all the evils, but also the qualities. And then every single job I had, there was like a voice behind that was saying, but what about purpose? And at some point, I actually contemplated going into non-for-profit sector, because there was kind of a germ in me always asking the question is, can we do this for the right reason rather than just making someone rich, right? And here I am, and I enjoy ever since. I think it's a very rewarding place to be. It's been hard at times, and we can discuss that in a second. But overall, it's been such a rewarding experience being able to bring everything I've learned and I care about into a domain as complex, and dynamic, and exciting as AI is.
It's amazing to hear your journey from being, wanting to be a pilot to actually being inspired by Star Trek. And I'm curious about that experience of being a young woman in Romania. And do you think it would be dramatically different now if you were a teenager in Romania? Do you think you'd be encouraged into this career?
I will definitely. So I think the funny thing about being an ex-communist country is that we never had a gender equality problem. I think I was actually absolutely shocked when I learned during one of my jobs here in the UK, the fact I was paid 30% less than my male counterparts. And it's like, this is unacceptable. This will never, ever happen in Romania. So I think at the root of this is the fact that for many of its evil, communists had positive sides as well. And one of it is that it has actually established a fair society, fair to the when we talk about genders, not the distribution of wealth. That's for another time. But what's really interesting is that if you were a woman in Romania, especially during those communist times, you could be anything you wanted within the constraints, obviously, of the communist layout of the country. But you could be an engineer, you could be, building machines, you could be a tractor driver. Nothing could stop you. And to that extent, Romania has one of the most balanced ratio of people in technology. I think at some point there were more women studying at the Polytechnic University in Bucharest than men, was 54% to 46. So it wasn't a surprise that I ended up choosing computer science back then. And in fact, in my class, we're more 60% of us are girls, which was crazy. Yes, not all of us ended up going to uni and studied. The boys were fascinated with tech. They were spending all their time just playing around and coding. But nevertheless, there's nothing stopped us. And when I came to the UK and understood how big the issue is, and especially when I started, looking into technology and women and the root causes of exclusion of women in technology, I was shocked. And I said, like, this is unacceptable. Look, this is something that a democratic society we all look up to and admire is doing this to women. Like, oh yeah, okay, so we need to do something about it, which is not just about opening the door. And I think this is where things get really heavy and hard to address, is when you are in and you still don't make it because the macho culture continues to prevail when it comes to all things engineering. And that's a reality. And it's not, it's something that will take us decades to address, because it's been done in decades. So it's not something that you do just by empowering women and giving them opportunity. You have to allow that culture to change.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super hopeful that, AI can accelerate bias, but it could also accelerate, the removal of bias. And I'd love it to be channeled in that way. Yeah, but thank you so much for sharing. I actually visited Yash a couple of years ago and delivered a talk there, my first time in Romania. So I really hope to go back again.
Oh, please visit. I was actually talking to my mom yesterday about Yash. I am from Transylvania, so which lies somewhere in the north of Transylvania. And I studied in Bucharest. And we're just saying, and funny enough, you mentioned Yash, that we should actually visit Yash because she's going there tomorrow. And I said, like, I should go because it's been such a long time I've been there. And it's such a beautiful city. It used to be capital of Moldova, which was one of the region. And it's not just a beautiful city, but it's it's full of sightseeing, has very deep religious backgrounds. Probably you've noticed, Romania is a deeply religious country, and it's one of the best cities we have, actually. So hope you
Very
hope you
lucky
visit
to
the
get
rest of the cities, because there's so much more to discover.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've had such an amazing career. I'm still just like blown away and also almost jealous of the fact that women were encouraged and pushed into STEM so much. When I was at uni, we were encouraged into STEM, and I did a STEM degree. It's kind of, I did a STEM degree, but it was like miles and miles more men did STEM degrees. I'm still stuck on that. I'm still shocked, and I feel like most places, all countries should be more equal in terms of that. I think that when women are in the room, we can have a better say at what works for us, and help to make more equal, responsible AI as well, especially in terms of bias. Obviously, as we know, most language models are trained on mainly male data and predominantly white male data as well. And you were talking about being at the forefront of responsible AI and AI being a trailblazer. What do you think most companies or leaders misunderstand about AI and responsible AI when they first approach it? Because we've seen such a boom of AI use, but I'm not sure how much responsible AI use we have seen.
True. That's a very good question. I would say they miss what AI is altogether. I think that I see this over and over again, and has not changed much, despite the fact now it's the subject du jour. Every single newspaper now has a section of it. Everyone is an expert. Politicians and celebrities alike are talking about it, and the tech bros have become themselves a bit of celebrities, and still the vast majority do not really understand the nature of AI, because it goes to the extremes, and this is actually I fear that this might have been intentional. So one extreme, which is AI is an esoteric tool that either is going to wipe up humanity, take our jobs, be smarter than us, will replace us, because guess what? We're just average humans. Like that was one sentence that made my brain explode. How can you even make such a statement when you are the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company with such influence? What's an average doctor? What's an average teacher? But put that aside. I think there is a narrative that tell us that this is an omnipotent artifact, close to a demigod, esoteric, that is here to alienate all evil, but also create more evils, wipe humanity. And at the other end of spectrum is AI is a tool that will be able to help us solve some of the issues, but we need to be able to find a way to work with it. And I think most of the narrative focus on this sensationalized view of AI, because that's what sells, that's what generates clicks. But in reality, most executives I work with, they are terrified, because every single day there's another article. It's like Doomsday's article. Public perception of the public perception. You see that the vast majority of people have a negative view of AI, which is unhelpful. Of course, when you look at and you look at surveys of employees, that kind of slightly changes, because there are plenty of companies that started training their workforce and actually put it out there, explaining to them what is AI technology first and how it operates within a context, and hence we should consider AI as a socio-technical ecosystem rather than just a set or technology stack. And then perception change when you have that understanding. So I think our job in a community is actually keep everything grounded. My work with the executives is to say, can you for a minute silence the New York Times and the BBCs and all the experts, and just bring it back to the basic. This is a pattern recognition technology on steroids, but it's a tool that's been trained on data. Guess what? Some of the platforms have actually harvested human output, and history will judge us for that. But nevertheless, it's a tool that generates words at a speed unprecedented speed. And that's what it does, is it finds pattern in massive troves of data, and it classifies it. And from here, you kind of see so many different applications that give us the exciting world of today. But at the end of the day, this is a tool. There's nothing esoteric about it, nothing fantastic about it. And if we start with the premises, it's going to be much easier to draft a strategy that is grounded in the reality of your business. But then I think where we need to be working together, and this is where we need a multidisciplinary group of experts, is to being able to anticipate the systemic ripple effects. Because this is on top of understanding how AI works within the boundaries of your organization. What has become pretty clear is that it has that ripple systemic effect that's much faster, much more profound than other technology, and that needs to be incorporated in. So that friction, we need to acknowledge they exist, and then secondly, being able to manage it accordingly.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot, but yeah, I completely agree. I also I've said on this podcast a few times, it's as if there's a black and white way people think about AI. It's either going to take all of our jobs or it's going to kill us. And I'm 24, and I hear this said a lot by people my age rather than people older than me as well. I think that while some employers have taken that time to upskill and educate their employees, there's also been almost a bit of a pushback for people my age and graduates where maybe they aren't getting the jobs that they thought that they would get. And when they are getting the jobs, employers are saying, well, AI could do your job now. So it's almost like this self-fulfilling prophecy where they're saying AI is going to take our jobs, AI is taking our jobs, and then some employers are giving those lower entry level jobs. I think that there needs to be a lot more education and a lot more understanding and a lot more conversation similar to one that we're having now about responsible AI and what it means for society as a whole to use AI, not just not just to have fun with it. But I do agree that it's just a tool. And that is something that I say to people all the time. I actually did a talk last week where I was talking to a group of teenage girls, and I was getting them to point out the AI and different things and saying, look, it's not just a chatbot. It can do so many different things. And the reason it can do so many different things is because a lot of it is just automation. Even when I was saying to them, like, a calculator is a form of AI, they were shocked. And I think that when you break down all the different layers of AI and you get to that very first one, the very center of it, it's not as almost like mythical as it seems to be.
I think you're absolutely right, and I'm encouraged to hear that there is a pushback from your generation, because I think this needs to happen. What worries me is to see that some large companies are going around pushing AI on their employees. I've just literally read some articles on The Guardians about how Amazon was doing that to junior coders, and the junior coders, spoke with Guardian. So this is like a first account from someone who already has been abused by AI, meaning that she was spending most of the time correcting AI mistakes, and with that training the AI. And guess what? Apparently, a few weeks later, she was laid off. And I think this is so unacceptable, because this is exactly the type of narrative that's pushing and coming from Silicon Valley, that we are a raw material for AI. That's how we ended up actually building some of the largest platform, by harvesting behavior, human data, human pictures. And as I said, history will judge us rashly, because if we don't push back against this narrative, we'll find ourselves managed and run by algorithms. And I'll encourage our listeners to have a look at, there's a field of research on algorithmic management, especially for Amazon workers, for Uber drivers, and where you can actually see the horror of having a job where your boss is an algorithm. And I think is it's unacceptable to have companies laying people off because of AI, because this has such a bad precedent. We know AI is nowhere near ready to actually address the messiness of humanity and makes big mistakes. But in the same newspaper, Guardian, there was another article about an incident with Meta where an AI agent ended up revealing some confidential, private information for their users. And one industry expert who actually said Meta is running an experiment at scale, and which is like really scary. That's what Meta has been doing. Let's put it out there, experimenting at scale. However, I think this experimentation will impact primarily your generation, Leah. And I think it's the more I speak with students and teenagers, because I do a bit of work on that space, I keep on saying, you guys have to start organizing. You have to start being there, because they are coming after your future. And then it's not like AI is replacing people. If you look at something like China, so yes, China is a communist country. They have a very large population. China never ever uses AI. The narrative of AI in China is not about replacement, it's about augmentation. They talk about AI augmenting humans. So just picture in 10, even 20 years from now on, how Chinese citizens will be vastly superior to everyone in the world, because guess what? They started coding at the age of 5. They use AI. They did not replace people with AI. They used the tool, as fabulous as it is, called AI, to make humans better. While what we're doing, we're just kicking people off. We use them, abuse them, and then laying them off. So please pass this message to your generation, Leah, and tell
I
us
do. Yeah.
how we can help you, how we can support you, so that you still have a fair chance, and you don't allow this behavior to become the norm.
Exactly. I completely agree with everything you're saying. I do think that people need to rally together more. I think it kind of almost falls into a bit of an echo chamber where people are saying the same things, but it's almost like they're not connecting to one another, which is quite difficult. But I've been seeing a lot on social media from people my age saying, don't use AI, don't use AI. But instead of choosing to completely not use AI, I think people need to learn how to use it for them rather than letting it, I don't know, it's almost like giving into the machine when actually it doesn't, you can't give into something that isn't physically there. I do think that people need to stand up to employers more, but it seems across the UK like this is happening. I think it's like 60% of graduate jobs are down in the UK. Quite, yeah, it's a lot of graduate, and more people are graduating than they were the year before, or the year before that, or the year before that. I remember one of my friends has applied for, I think it was 300 grad jobs, and he finally got one, and it was in Denmark. And yeah, it's really, really tough out here with all the automation. But I think it's yeah, communities needed.
I think there are some opportunities as well. I'm completely agreeing. And I think so much of what you said, the thing that you really stuck with me, this is a socio-economic system. I think that's quite important, that people just think this is technology, but it's not. There's a whole system around it. And I think that reframe is really helpful for people to be considering, because you're talking about all of the cascading effects from us engaging with AI and really looking beyond the immediate, fast responses that we might get. And I think the other thing that's really coming out of the conversation is we as humans have to decide what's valuable. It seems like right now we're deciding that speed, efficiency, whatever that means to you, money saving or money making is the priority. And it's sort of a short-term look at things. And also it does send a message out there, exactly what you said, the average person, or, we are not valuable. And there's something about recognizing our own, what we bring as humans. There's sort of a bit of a reckoning and a recognition of that. But I wanted to talk about this idea of growth, because in a way, even the way I'm saying it sounds like it's either you are responsible with AI, or you are about growth and money and going, all of that stuff. But actually, I think you are positioning it differently. I think what you're saying is actually responsible intelligence is a growth strategy. It's not just compliance. And I wonder how you convince those organizations who are saying, let's cut people, let's make efficiencies. AI can do the 20 people's job, which I know those conversations are happening because I was on a program recently, an MIT program about AI strategy and leadership. There were lots of senior tech people, and they are being called into those conversations. So how do you convince those people, no, responsible intelligence is the way and it will help you grow?
It's not an easy conversation to be having, because going back to what I said about the narrative, the dominant narrative in the press, that creates a rush for gold and a FOMO. And that FOMO is trigger the amygdala response of our brains, like it's a fight or flight. So I think the way to do it is actually to start by demystifying this whole phenomenon. That's why the work I'm doing, it's like explaining to people this is just a tool, and if you actually see it as a tool, you'll be able to re-engage with it as a tool, not as a esoteric phenomenon. And the second step is being able to be very honest in um, how do you see your business? And I think, unfortunately, for many executives, AI will act as a mirror. And we've been saying this for years. Not only that, as you mentioned, AI might potentially help us address some inequality if we are intentional about it, has helped us discover it. So I'm very grateful to the early reported incidents on AI. When we say Amazon deploying a tool, a recruitment tool, they went bias against women, and there were so many other tools. They were not even labeled AI. They ended up discriminating people of color, women left and right. But that was the only way for us to discover the size, or the how big the phenomenon was. And with that, being able to say something has to be done before we ended up automating inequality. So I think to a certain extent, AI has been acting as a mirror. And now for executive is going to be a mirror that will show what they stand for. Now we can see we've known for a while that Amazon is not a people-centric organization. They would not got where they are if they would have been. Again, it's enough to look at accounts of the working condition of the human workers to understand that. They keep on saying they abide the law, but and they do it because that is the benefit of being someone that has a swarm of lawyers. But in the same time, it shows what the company stands for. So I think at the moment I focus on working with executives who actually are open for that conversation, where there is a glimmer of they get it, they understand that every business, as Simon Simonek said, is a people business. And if you start with this assumption that it's not difficult to convince people, they need to pay attention to the human capital and how do you value it. And I think that is where I'm coming now, is inserting the value of human capital as a fundamental asset of the company. And many have said this throughout the history of the organization, and splashing on the value statement and code of conduct and mission and statements and what have you. Now is the crunch time, no? When they will deploy swarm of agents, and those agents will take people's jobs, will harm people, will, affect their mental health. They will prevent them access all sorts of opportunities, and the company does nothing. Then we know what the company stands for. And I'm hoping those companies will, at some point go out of business, because your generation, Leah, has the opportunity to actually build people-centric organizations. So you look as a company and you see in a certain industry and you see how they mistreat their employees, and you say, but the business idea is still very valid. And you say, I'm gonna build a business that is in the same opportunity area, but I'm going to driving it as people business organization. And then I will use AI to boost everything the good that the humans stand for, and that's how I'm going to take away business from those guys. So I think the way to approach is actually start working with um people who already know that this is the right thing to do, rather than convince those who, they are hiding behind, oh, AI is taking 30% our job, so therefore we have to let go 30% of our people. I think there's a little bit of a lost cause there, but I'm hoping that we can create a moment, a momentum, if you want, a critical mass that will say, this is the way to do it. Everything else is not acceptable. But because, it's early on, and because I've learned the ropes of being a pioneer, it's not easy. It's not easy. But thanks to you guys and so many others who, take from their time for their very busy lives and, have a podcast. A podcast it can help you carry this message so much further and inspire so many people to actually be part of this, because I think what we need for this um, recognition of the value of the human capital as an asset is for more people to be active actors and be empowered to participate. That's what I keep on saying, Leah, and stressing is, if you are passive, AI is going to use you and abuse you. So it's the time to be active and understand that despite the big risk, especially of job losses for your generation, also there is a huge opportunity to build businesses that otherwise would have require millions in investment and make a difference. It's become much easier to become an entrepreneur, and the barriers for entries are so much lower. And I think I would want to see more encouragement in this area. It's not just about the job that exists or will be created by big organization, but there's a potential to rethink business models altogether and create leaner, better organization where not only that you enjoy what you're doing, because AI is already doing the fuzzy automated job, but you focus on what matters. And I think we can establish together what is that what matters in context by context.
Love that. Absolutely. Completely agree with you. And you're lighting a fire under everyone who's listening, because, we have to take action, and activism is at the heart of it, really. And actually, Leah's very well placed to do that. She's been in a very young age, actually.
I have. I'm all about empowerment. And I really do believe that this is the perfect time for people to be visionaries and in their own fields. And even what I do now, my own company is an AI platform that can track and predict trends in gender-based violence. Like, there isn't something that's like that is actually human-centric and isn't just police surveillance or feeds into the surveillance state. And I think that people my age growing up in COVID, we have different kind of ideas of what we can and we can't do. And I think this is, whilst it feels like a door is maybe shut, a door that maybe we thought that we'd be walking through, another one is opening. And I've been saying that to my friends as well. I was like, you don't have to do what you thought you would do when you were 18 years old. We didn't think COVID was going to happen, and we didn't know that AI was coming, and we didn't know that AI was going to be what it is now. But instead of, we have to rise up, is keep it human centric and keep it pushing. And that's what I say.
Here. It's all I can say. Like, I love it. Say it out loud every single time you have the opportunity, because it's exactly what we need. We need to pause or mute the doomsday narratives that are pushing upon us, and say, we can make it happen. We can have what it takes to build a prosperous future. It's going to be different. As you said, we did not anticipate the pandemic or the rise of AI. Maybe some people did, but we're not going to discuss in this podcast. However, for your generation is how do we take advantage of this? Because if you look back in history, every single generation had their challenges. Our parents' generation were born just after the war, and then obviously I grew up in a communist country. There was the first decades in communism were very troubled, and then we had that very abrupt pass from a communist regime to market economy, which was actually quite traumatic for, especially for my parents' generation, because they went from having job security, having no job and no money to support us. And I think every single generation had their own challenges, but they step up to it. So I think it's time to say we are standing on the shoulder of giants. Uh, our ancestors have done it before. We can do it, and we can actually pick up from what they left it and do a better job. And I think this is where I disagree with people who outside technology keep on saying, "Oh, it's doom and gloom," and look how we are poorer and the situation is so much more difficult. Probably it is compared with, let's say, 5 years ago. It's a economic depression, especially in the Western world. But if you look overall, humanity as a collective, we are in probably the best time in our history, with less and less people living under the poverty line, with so many diseases having been cured, with people having access to knowledge and education to an unprecedented degree. Who would have thought that a child in Ethiopia with a simple phone can access Oxford content, Oxford knowledge? And I think this is mind blowing to kind of look back and where we came from, and how much we've achieved in such a short period of time. So I think we need to celebrate that. Yes, there's a lot much to be done, and we have other challenges, one of it being climate. But at the end of the day, that we are in a good position. Let's continue. Let's be beat up, and not be beat up by what's not working, but how far we have got as a collective, and how much we can achieve when we come together. I think the power of action is so much underrated when you try to achieve great things. Everything that was meaningful for our society was done through collective action.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think we needed you today. You're filling us up.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you've described your current work as both advisory and visionary, building a platform to set responsible AI as the new standard for growth. I think I'd love to know a bit more about how this platform could reshape the landscape.
I think when I say platform, I don't necessarily mean a technology platform.
Okay.
It will at some point imply that I'm early in my entrepreneurial stage, and I'm still refining my key positioning based on the client input I receive. When I say platform, I mean more of um, a way of bringing people together. And I think to a certain extent that continues the work I've been doing at PwC, because what set me apart from other consultants was that I wasn't just selling PwC or whatever we've created as part of responsible AI. For me, it was always using PwC as a platform to broadcast this message, to bring people together, to inspire them, to support them, to mentor them. So when I say platform, I mean more of a community of active agents that are able to participate with confidence in this phenomenon. And the way I do this with my clients is more about recognizing they are humans as well. They might be CEOs or non-executive directors, but at the end of the day, they are people who, go to bed every night and they read the news. So starting by um, giving them the agency that to a certain extent the AI narrative has taken away, and being able to say, there is a way forward. Yes, it's a bit different. Again, talking about adapting to the new condition. Yes, there is a burning platform. So I work identifying what is the burning platform of each organization and being able to help them be comfortable with their friction, because a burning platform introduces friction, and that friction needs to be managed. And I think that's what I'm focusing on, is being able to manage through the storm, while keeping the faith that after every storm there's a lovely sunshine and blue sky. And with that, being able to bring more multidisciplinary voices, because that's very important. Talking about the socio-technical expert is at this moment, I'm contemplating how to bring more change management experts and human resources professional, because if Leah, you just mentioned earlier about how it's not just about learning what AI is, but how to best use it. That will trigger a lot of change at the level of habits, as cognitive skills, but social behaviors. And we need to be able to capture that and feed it into the wider, I would say, AI story. And where AI story is how AI is being designed, how the AI is being implemented, how just and at the end of the day being able to say we are learning as we go. Yes, it's a bit uncomfortable. I keep on using uh um uh this picture of us building a plane where we're flying it. However, it's not as dramatic as it sounds, but we need to be able to provide that feedback. So when I say platform, I mean bringing people together, inspiring people to take action, and opening up opportunities. I've been very, very lucky to have so many opportunities in my career, and it's my responsibility to pay it forward and do this for others, and being able to create a momentum. So platform is also a momentum that will allow this paying forward to happen and accelerate.
I love that. I love that. Um, we will move on now to the quick fire round because it's been such an amazing conversation, but we're running out of time, and I want to get my favorite part of the
Yes.
episodes done. So what is one word that defines responsibility in AI?
Humanity.
I love that. I love that. What is the biggest misconception people have about responsible AI?
There is a one-off tick box exercise.
Nice. And if every CEO adopted one responsible AI principle tomorrow, what would you choose?
I wouldn't choose a principle. I would choose an activity, which is impact. Being able to understand impact beyond the boundaries of the organization. So impact, not necessarily one principle, is a set of activities.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I found today's episode inspirational, and I'm actually seeing my friends later, so now I've got loads and loads to tell them.
It was really fantastic. And I love the positivity, the impetus and the action you bring to AI. And I think that will help everyone. So thank you so much for giving us some of your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It was really an honor to be here. But also, I have to say, you inspired me because I'm not always that optimistic. So at times, I'm actually sliding on the pessimistic slope. But I think you guys have this amazing vibe of, uplifting people. So thank you very much for, creating this podcast and for keeping this flame alive. And best of luck in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to AI for Equity. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Stay curious, stay bold, and keep using AI to build a fairer future.